just come back for a moment to that letter I sent at the end of January 2013 to December's original contributors. And 5 days after I sent it, Linda passed and responded. And one day after that, I got an email from Grace Cavalieri. I knew her work well. I owned 2 of her books of poetry already, and just a few weeks before I sent that letter out, a friend had given me a birthday present of the Poet's Cookbook, which Grace had co-authored. Grace said in her email, "It was a shockingly pleasant surprise to hear from you and of December after all these years." She agreed to serve as an advisory editor and promised to send some poems soon. She sent them a week or so later, and thus began one of the most rewarding email exchanges of this venture. At each step of December's progress, the website going live, the first issue's release, our first appearance at AWP, Grace has been the most supportive, the most encouraging advocate a person or a publication could ask for. Here are a couple of excerpts from her emails, which don't do them justice because they're often in all caps and multicolored. When the first issue came out, she wrote, "December arrived before December. It is heart-stoppingly elegant and beautiful and sleek and immortal." Another that said, "I'm so glad to be part of this adventure." In May, when the second issue came out, "I just received your majestic magazine. Surely it is the finest in print." I love her. And of course there was the one that said, "Let us plan a Washington reading somehow." And here we are. But of course Grace is far more than an encouraging advisory editor. She is the author of 18 poetry collections, 26 produced plays, and the texts of 2 operas. She's won countless awards. For more than 30 years, she's been the producer and host of The Poet and the Poem, broadcast from the Library of Congress, and she writes a monthly poetry feature for the Washington Independent Review of Books. What I didn't realize at the time that I first sent out that letter and got a response from Grace 6 days later was that really only a couple of weeks before that, her husband had passed away. Grace's latest book, The Man Who Got Away, is a memorial to Ken Flynn, her husband of 60 years. 8 months ago, Grace headlined a December reading at the AWP conference in Seattle, and it's not an understatement to say she brought down the house. Of all of the many elements that have made my involvement in December pleasurable and worthwhile, connections with people like Grace are at the top of my list. It's my great pleasure to introduce the poet, the playwright, the radio star, and the title for which I'm most grateful now, my friend, Grace Cavalieri.
Just healed. Gianna actually is the most competent person I've ever met in my life. She should be vice president. She's too busy to be president of the United States. She puts these things together like an apple pie. It's really been wonderful to be connected to December. Kurt Johnson was the original editor, and he accepted these poems of mine that were really strange. And he had very unusual taste, and they were very experimental. I was extremely surprised when it was a very well-established magazine, very, really elegant and very well known, and I had just begun sending poems out. So this was a high mark in my life. And so when it came back, this resurgence of December was just a full circle. So Gianna said to read something from a current issue, and this is called Beyond Its Possibilities. Loneliness is not exactly solitude. Solitude is not exactly loneliness, as each presses forward into the other. Mothers always die, husbands always leave. But this is a conference of philosophical opinions under the weight of too much thought. Let us say, rather, there's music enough to make us happy. No new memories, perhaps, but sleeves of light vowels that carry sound into the harmony of loss. What feelings are let flying all at once in the flinty gray of dawn? Well, that's the way I'd rather go in any garden of discussion. What rises high in the heart and falls low unexpectedly, without management, and coexists with surprise? That is what makes me love the first bird song, this opening sun advancing through the trees. I'm reading a couple from The Man Who Got Away because my publisher is here, Anna Lawton, and Meryl Leffler is here, and he wrote the most beautiful review I've ever received in my life. The attention to each word was something I just cannot say enough about. Many of you might have read it. It's still available in the Washington. See, a lot of people are nodding their heads. Washington Independent Review of Books was just posted, and you can just click it on right this minute. It's a consummate understanding of what I felt. I'm going to read just a couple of these, and the first is called, first I want to say I did premiere this here at the Writers Center. Thank you, Sunil. And I want to say that the cover is by Dan Morano, and this is not colorized. This is actually the color of West Virginia. And he is just a genius. So he caught exactly what I wanted with that one hawk going over the mountain. And this is called I'll Take That as a Compliment. And it's about my husband and I taking disco lessons. Dancing in the basement of the Pentagon every Friday night. They'd open up for disco lessons, and how we'd been waiting to learn those steps. Elaine, the accountant in my office, would come with her new boyfriend, although his kids vomited on her their first time at the picnic. But maybe Elaine could make it after all to this kind of carefree, bouncing, fast music. Her ex-husband locked her out and kept the family punch bowl. And Ken and I were badly in need to find something new in our marriage. This just might be it. Finding the moves to Donna Summer, urging us on. Oh yes, they pushed the desks aside to clear the space for continuing education in the Pentagon. The Pentagon basement for people like us, except the only trouble is we both wanted to lead. We learned the grapevine and the sidewind and outlasted Elaine and Ted. But every week we found we needed to start all over again. Maybe if we had a strobe light, my husband said. I'm willing to. Are you? Thank you. If you clap, I'll stop. I'll think it's the end. And this is called Haberdashery. And there's so many things I wish I hadn't done. I wish I had let Ken eat potato chips before dinner. And I wish I hadn't made fun of him, and that's what this poem is about, haberdashery. I wish I hadn't made fun of him that day at Union Station when he walked away from the tie rack with the same green and blue striped tie he had in his closet at home. Oh. Green and blue slanted stripes. You have one, I laughed. He said, maybe the stripes are wider on the other one. I proved I was right. They were identical. I proved it. Why have two exactly alike? Because I like that tie, he said. I always liked that tie. Then I recalled when I was 17 and his mother took the hat right off my head. She liked it. Actually, my father did this when she said, isn't that adorable? He took it right off my head and handed it to her. I never found another. None of this is what I want to talk about. This second, I want to show you the way the sun lights up the tree. Such a funny slice of light. It couldn't be made by design. The way it hits the angle of green. There will never be another one like it. And the last one in this book is called Consumer Report. I thought about it a long time because I ran out of staples. So I tiptoed down to his office. I didn't know what else to do. Next it was a typing paper, neatly stacked beside the desk. Thank God he thought ahead with batteries in the drawer for my mouse and the keyboard. I used to play office once when I was very young. I'd walk around the street and write down all the numbers that I saw on tiny squares of paper, put in shoeboxes, stacked inside the closet wall. But this cannot go on. How long? Today my swimming goggles broke. I know he has 2 pairs, brand new, inside his swimming bag. I cannot bear to open it. They are my style, but the same day as my own. His swim bag zipper is closed all the way. I'll wear the old ones another day. It's always the same, these seasons that come and go. I steal what I can from him. Shoplifting from the life I loved is no way to live. What will I do when azaleas stop blooming? I stole his bottle of orange-flavored gin. What will I do when we run out of supplies? And that's my can. Thank you for so much, Meryl, for the deep understanding you gave those poems. I could not have bared anyone to do anything else with them. This is the book that's being premiered live at the Italian Embassy on the 19th. If anyone wants to go, email me, because you need this piece of paper. You have to RSVP to show your photo ID and everything. So anybody who wants to go, there's a few other poets reading. Miles Davis Moore, Sylvana Straw, Sarah Browning, and Avideh Shoshani. So I'll be premiering this book then, and so I'm just going to read a couple and end with that. It's an autobiographical book, and actually it's kind of brought together from some other books. And it was about being brought up an Italian Catholic little girl in Trenton, New Jersey, the hub of the universe. This is called The First. Mrs. Conti was the first blonde Italian I ever knew. She didn't have any children. She was the first who had a husband with a mistress. Mr. Conti was the first man with money enough to have a mistress. Whiskey money. He bootlegged whiskey once, and now a czar in Trenton, his wife could drive a car. Mrs. Conti was the first one of our friends with free time and her own car. She'd visit our house on Thursdays. Poor Veronica, my parents would say. Poor Veronica. She had purses of every color and size. Purses were no problem for Mrs. Conti. She gave me all the old ones, smelling of tobacco and perfume. Veronica was the only woman I'd ever seen smoke a cigarette, at least in those days, except in the movies. The black patent leather purse was my favorite, a gold satin lining, shiny and fine, kept in tissue by my paper dolls, filling the room with a mysterious scent. Once I put my Sonia Henny doll inside, and she came out covered with smoke, adultery, sadness, and lust. Beautiful, beautiful Sonia. Her strong muscles, her upraised arms, her tiny sparkling skirts, smooth legs, strong knees, a skater who could cut figures with the angels, a natural blonde, clean and able, a champion. She could drive a car anywhere she wanted. She didn't have to fill her time on Thursdays. The only people in the room who know Sonia Henny are Linda, me, and Meryl. No, Candace, and oh yes, definitely. She was the Gold Cup champion in the 30s, and an Olympic champion, yeah, in the 1938, yeah. And this is called Tomato Pies 25 Cents. Tomato pies are what we called them those days before pizza came in at my grandmother's restaurant in Trenton, New Jersey. My grandfather is rolling meatballs in the back. He studied to be a priest in Sicily, but saved his sister Maggie from marrying a bad guy by coming to America. Uncle Joey is rolling dough and spooning sauce. Uncle Joey is always scrubbed clean, sobered up in a white starched shirt, after cops delivered him home just hours before. The waitresses are helping themselves to handfuls of cash out of the drawer, playing the numbers with Moon Mullins and shad sent in from Broad Street, 1942. Tomato pies with cheese, 25 cents. With anchovies, large, 50 cents. A whole dinner is 60 cents before 6 p.m. How the soldiers bust in from Fort Dix would stand outside all the way down Warren Street, waiting for this new taste treat. Young guys in uniform, lined up and laughing, learning Italian, before being shipped out to fight the last great war. And I'm going to end with a little bit of a long poem, which is The Mandate of Heaven. And that's why, this is another Dan Morano photo. And this is why I love this, because I had a very modest childhood, and you can see the little houses with clothes on the clothesline, but there is that dream of heaven that I had, and there it is. The Mandate of Heaven. It's about ancestry. I'm not sure where it began in the dozens of stories in the books of wisdom, or the story behind the story, but the power in the writing wants to be released during this one lifetime. Not much to go on, with the fears, guilt, and rage, but through these lay the inner path to the eternal and the unending story, which will be moved somehow through me, my ancestors, if you would tell me who you are and bless what I do. If we could finish the unfinished, what would we say? What themes would we play today? What violence, death, abandonment, and loss would we see? How could I seek the inner harmony which you speak of, but have left undone? The inner mystery, the memory of you, I thank you. Gratitude is the one miracle you teach in the long story you sang and wrote, saying of life, the only way out is all the way through, and since you have done that before me, you build a long bridge of high truth for me to cross, carrying the story, the mutable story, the one that has a habit of happening again and again, with its unforgiving music and forgiving spirits. This time, the words you hummed in each other's ears at night and at work reside here in my body with all their unfinished feelings, breathing for my life. Thank you.
The official part of our program. But of course, the unofficial part of any gathering always offers plenty of fun. We have a lot of good food, and we have plenty to drink, so I hope you'll stay for our gathering. Early on, I got another piece of valuable advice from an advisor, a poet who has an MBA, as we discussed earlier, a rare combination. So my MBA poet friend told me to be shameless. There's no shame in wanting to bring more good poetry and prose into the world, he said. So be shameless in how you go about it. So I've tried often and diligently to be shameless. So I will be shameless now and remind you that we are a 501c3 tax-exempt organization, and we are completely independent, which means we lack the financial support of a university or an institution, and we are dependent on donations and subscriptions for our operations. So any support you might provide is as appreciated as it is necessary. I also want to announce that we are still taking submissions, general as well as entries for the second Jeff Marks Memorial Poetry Prize. First place is $1,500 and publication. The honorable mention is $500 plus publication. And our judge this year is Mary Shevist, who won the National Book Award last year for her collection in Carnegie. We're also selling subscriptions tonight with a special offer. Our new issue is out, as hot off the press as possible. Subscribers don't even have them in their mailboxes yet. If you buy a subscription tonight, we'll give you the revival issue as a bonus. It's sure to be a collector's item, and it features Linda's and Grace's poems. And that way, you'll be sure to get Jennifer's poems in the spring issue too, and Sarah's poems, which are in the current issue. So you can see Judy, who will move from there to the table again afterwards. So in addition to all the people I've already thanked tonight, nobody deserves my thanks today more than all of you who came out on a Monday night for being friends and family, members and supporters of the literary community. To whoever you are and whatever the reason that brought you here, thank you.